Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called 10 Words or Less. I was working as an auto tech in a woman-owned repair shop. I was once asked to explain the problem with a female customer's car to them. I'm pretty good at explaining things without using jargon, and usually had no problems doing this, but not with this customer. I started to explain what was going on, but she decided that I was out to bamboozle her. She shoved her hand, palm out, to within an inch of my face and stated loudly, "Stop." I did so, and she said in a very arch tone, "I want you to tell me, in 10 words or less, what is wrong with my car." I shrugged and said, "It's broken. Repairs will cost $700, and walked away. She followed, saying, "I guess I need more information than that." I replied, "That is what I was trying to provide, before you so rudely interrupted me. Now, if you will excuse me, I have other work to do." Then I refused to respond to her in any way. The next story is called Mandatory Overtime. I used to work for a company where the boss had this habit of demanding that we stay late, even when there was absolutely no work left to be done. It was one of those toxic environments where productivity was measured by the hours you spent at your desk, rather than the actual output of your work. One day, after wrapping up all my tasks well before the end of the day, my boss came over and told me that I needed to stay late because that's just how things are done around here. Mind you, there was literally nothing left for me to do. Now, instead of arguing or trying to reason with him, I decided to play along with his ridiculous demand for overtime pay. I nodded, grabbed a book I had been meaning to read, and settled back into my chair. For the next 2 hours, I sat at my desk, flipping through pages, occasionally pretending to jot down notes, and looking as busy as possible. At the end of those 2 hours, my boss came by to check on me, expecting to see me toiling away at some imaginary task. Instead, he found me reading a novel. He looked puzzled and asked, "What are you doing?" With a straight face, I replied, "Well, you asked me to stay late, so I figured I might as well put in some overtime. This book has been on my reading list for a while." Needless to say, my boss was speechless. He couldn't really argue with me since he had asked me to stay late, and I was technically still on the clock. From that day forward, he never asked me to stay late unless there was actual work to be done. The third story is called More Details. Back in the day, I was a field tech for an IT company. My teammates and I were contracted to an aluminum mill in the upper left-hand corner of America. The place was huge. It's the only place that I've worked as an IT guy where I had to put on a hot suit to go into certain areas as a part of my job. So, one day, I got this ticket for a computer that wouldn't turn on at the other end of the plant. So I grabbed a power supply and head off in the golf cart. No joke, this place was so big we had golf carts to get around. We used paper tickets, with all the information for the call out printed on the ticket, with space for use to write what was done, etc. We'd bring the resolved tickets back to the manager, and he'd put the data into our wacky database for tracking. I get out there, and sure enough, the power supply is deader than mashed potatoes. I swap the power supply, machine powers up, I update my ticket, and off I go back to HQ. The end of the day comes eventually, and I head off my fistful of tickets. The next day, around lunchtime, I got some of my tickets back from the manager with a note, "Needs more detail." I point out to the guy that there's not much more detail to be had. He wasn't having it though. He accepted the tickets back, but made sure that I understood that I needed more detail on my tickets. Okay, fine. Later in the afternoon, I get a call for a bad floppy drive. I grab a floppy drive off the shelf and race out in the golf cart. Upon arrival, I do my normal test diagnose, replace, update process. With the exception of adding excruciating details to the ticket. The process documentation filled the entire front of the ticket and continued on to fill the back of the page. It was a thing of beauty. It took me about 20 minutes to write it all out, describing the replacement of a floppy drive in excruciating detail. At the end of the day, I turned in my stack of completed tickets to the manager with a smile and a wave. Next morning, as we do every morning, we have a quick team powwow to discuss any special items that need attention for the day, things to watch out for, things we missed previously, etc. Kind of like a scrum, before there was such a word as scrum. During this meeting, the manager begins talking about proper documentation of tickets. He holds up my masterpiece and plainly states that this is a bit much. Just note on your tickets, in a quick and concise manner, what the problem was and what you did to fix it. Nobody ever got the business again for not being detailed enough on their tickets. The last story is called Standard Format. At my first job, decades ago, as the junior employee on the IT staff for a school, I was in charge of setting up email addresses for new teachers. The district had Microsoft Exchange for email, and the education policy was that all teacher email addresses would follow the same format. First initial, then last name, unless we had another teacher of the same name, which never happened, because we only had around 400 teachers in the district. However, we did have a new teacher, Greg Roper, who I decided to just set up as simply Roper G. Once all the new usernames were set up, my boss, our bureaucratic assistant principal, reviewed them all and sent me a short note telling me to fix Greg's username to comply with the school's standard format. I didn't see the note until my next workday, and by that time, the principal's assistant had left for a vacation to Hawaii. Facing a deadline to publish all the emails for the school website and back to school email, I went ahead and followed orders, and everything was quiet for about a week. But then, students began to receive their welcome emails, directing them to contact their teachers using the newly assigned email addresses. Next thing I knew, I got an urgent, slightly flustered call from the principal himself. I printed off that email directive from the assistant principal and went up to the principal's office, where I found both of them sitting side by side. Apparently, several concerned parents had already contacted the school, questioning the appropriateness of the teacher's email address. The assistant principal, still tan from his vacation, started to low-key chastise me for not catching this sooner. His sunburned face turned even redder from embarrassment when I plopped down the email thread from a week earlier, where he explicitly asked to make Greg's email comply with school policy. The principal's expression was priceless. The assistant principal left with his tail between his legs, and I had a new email created for the teacher that afternoon. Greg was so grateful that he actually took me to lunch, joking that it was the least he could do after the crazy ordeal. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.